Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of our Trainz route building tutorial series. In this series I'm using TRS-19, but most things also apply to other Trainz versions. In this video I'm covering industries and loads. So let's begin by loading our route. In Trainz there are two kinds of industries, pre-built ones and custom ones. Let's begin with pre-built ones since they are easier to use. For this example, I'm going to place down a coal mine. So I'm going to go to the Objects tab and I'm going to search for coal mine. This object is a pre-built industry. You can see that there are already loading and unloading tracks placed here, where you can attach your own tracks and the type will match. But now let's go over the actual industry. If I go back to the Objects tab and click on the Edit Properties tool, and then left click on the industry, you can see that this window comes up. At the top you've got the basics, so the name, the layer and the bound layer, but below that you have the industry's specific settings. The first item here is diesel fuel. This is a load that this industry either supplies or demands. In this case, diesel fuel is demanded. As you can see, it consumes diesel fuel every 30 seconds, the amount of which is the rate displayed here, and the starting amount is displayed here. This means that trains which have diesel fuel loaded in wagons can stop here at a specific track and unload this diesel fuel. Below that is the load coal. Since this is a coal mine, it's reasonable to assume that coal is what it produces. And indeed, if you look here, you can see that it produces coal every 30 seconds, the amount of which is the rate, and the starting amount is here. Now I'll quickly add some track and put down some trains to demonstrate this. Okay, after doing some searching, I found some fitting rolling stock. On this side, we have this lovely Big Bertha model, along with some British 7-plank wagons, which if I click on the Edit Properties tool and then left click on one of these wagons, I can see have a load type of coal. And on the other side, I have this lovely castle class with these British tank cars. If I left click on these with the Edit Properties tool selected, you can see that they have diesel fuel as a load. Now, if you remember, the coal mine consumes diesel fuel, so for this example, we need to fill this train to be able to unload it. So, with diesel fuel selected, I'm just going to click on Units and type in either the max load you can see here, or just typing in 99999, which is a far greater number than the max load, so it will be limited to the max load. Now this specific wagon has this load loaded. To make all the other wagons have this load loaded as well, you need to click on the Copy to Other Compatible Vehicles button. If you now click Confirm, you can see that these wagons are all loaded with diesel fuel. We don't need to load this train because we'll load it at the coal mine. So now I'll quickly go into QuickDrive so I can demonstrate this. Let's load the coal train first. We're already focused on Big Bertha, so now we just need to start driving. With some industries, you can load a train while the train is still moving. For example, with this coal mine, you can slowly move underneath this coal tipple and it will load the wagons as you go. With some other industries, you have to stop for the train to be loaded or unloaded. I find that with this coal mine, you can usually pass under it at about 8 or 10 miles an hour for the cars or wagons to be loaded, so that's what I'll do. As you can see, the wagons are being loaded as we're driving underneath the coal tipple. Now that Big Bertha's train is loaded, let's go over to our castle class. To control this train, you need to focus on it. And I don't just mean mentally, I mean left click on it so that the camera is focused on it. So now let's try unloading this train over here. I'll just drive forwards a bit. The cars are not automatically being unloaded while the train is moving, so I'll stop the train here. And as you can see, the cars that are within the unloading area have instantly been unloaded. Another interesting thing to note about this coal mine is that if you hold Control and right-click on it, and then click View Details, you can see here that it turns diesel fuel into coal. Now at first that might seem completely strange, but if you think about it from a mechanical point of view, this coal mine is using the diesel fuel to power its machinery to excavate the coal. So in a way, it does turn diesel fuel into coal. This means that if this industry runs out of diesel fuel, it will no longer produce coal. Now let's go back to the surveyor and cover custom industries. To make a custom industry, you're going to need a loading bay object, which is the piece of track where the train needs to stop in order to load or unload cargo. I usually use the multiple industries object. So let's go ahead and find this. If you go over to the Objects tab and type in multiple industries, you can see that it's already selected multiple industries. This, however, is the old version, so I'm going to select the multiple industries new and place this down. As you can see, this is a piece of track with two arrows attached. This is the piece of track that trains need to stop on to load or unload. If you now go over to the Edit Properties tool and then left-click on the multiple industries object you've placed down, you can see that this window looks quite different. So let's go over these tabs one by one. The first is Queues. In this tab, you can define which loads or products can be loaded or unloaded at this industry. So let's go ahead and add a load. To do this, click on the plus symbol by a queue, and a list of all the different products that are currently installed in Trainz will be displayed. So let's select something like logs. So we'll select logs and then click the check mark, and as you can see, the logs load or product has now been added. Here you can also set the size, which is the maximum amount of the products in this queue that can be stored within the industry at any given time. Beside that, you can see waybill 80%. This indicates what percentage this queue must be emptied to for this industry to show up in the waybill, which, if you didn't know, is a list of industries that have demands which you can access in Driver. Now, if you click here, you can set how much of this product or load is currently stored at this industry. So if I click here and try to type in 200 and then click the check mark, you can see that it's now filled with 196 tons, which is a bit confusing since we set the maximum to be 100. Well, the maximum is units, and as you can see, besides the tons, that actually only translates to 35 tons. So now if I put in a lot more, for example 10,000 tons, you can see that it's limited it to 560 tons, which is exactly 100 units. Now let's go over to tracks. In this tab, you can select which queue is serviced by which track. In this case, this industry only has one track, so there is only one pickup/drop-off location here. To add this queue, click on the plus symbol and select the product, which in this case is logs. Now if you click the check mark, logs have been added here. Here you can also select the loading or unloading mode. By default, vehicles can load and unload cargo at the same time. If you click here, you can change this to load only or to unload only. Here you can also select which queue you are using. Now let's go over to the Processes tab. Here you can set up one product turning into another product, like with the coal mine, the diesel fuel turned into coal. To do this, you would need to add the product which is consumed on the left, which at the moment we only have logs, and then the product which is produced on the right. At the moment we only have logs here as well. Where it says duration, you can select how long it takes for one product to be consumed and another to be produced. If you click on the left load, you can see it consumes 6 tons or 1 unit, and if you click on the right one, you can see that it produces 6 tons or 1 unit. If you click on this text here, you can select the output amount, or in the other case, you can select the input amount. Now we've only got the products tab left. If we go here, you can see that there's only one product here, the logs product. If you want this product to only be loaded into a specific vehicle, you can click on the text beside vehicle and select a vehicle. You can also change which unit of measurement is used to display the amount of this product. At the moment it says tons, but if I click here, it changes to liters, and then to items, and then back to tons. If you want to give this custom industry a custom description, you can do this by scrolling to the top and clicking on the text beside where it says description. Here you can write a description. Now that we've set up what products we want this industry to handle, let's just quickly touch on how to do the scenery for this custom industry. The first thing you'll notice is that we'll need a loading platform. So to add a loading platform, I'm going to go over to the Splines Mode tab, and I'm just going to search for a platform. For example, let's use this platform 4 meter. So I'm just going to add it beside this track. So sort of just running down here, and I'm going to move it quite close to the track. Next, let's connect some tracks to this industry. To do this, I'm going to go over to the tracks, and I'm just going to add the tracks, like we did with the coal mine. Now let's put some logs on the platform to indicate that this is where logs are loaded. So I'm just going to search for some log assets. Okay, for example, this one. So I'm going to place this here, and I'm going to turn it, and slightly raise it up so that it actually sits on the platform. And I'm actually going to hold Control so I can increase the height in smaller increments. And then I'm going to move it so that it sits snugly on top of the platform. Now if I were putting this industry on my route, then I would put a lot more time into detailing this area. For example, I might add a crane, even though the crane wouldn't actually be animated and the logs wouldn't disappear on the platform if they're loaded. It would add a lot to the realism. Another thing that you might want to add is maybe a foreman's office or a parking lot or things like that. Now that covers the basics of how industries and products work. However, I do want to touch on one more thing quickly, which is that you can add loads or products to wagons. For example, these open wagons. If I go to the Trainz tab and then click on the Edit Properties tool and left click on one of these wagons, you can see that here we have the same plus icon that we had in the multiple industry. So if I click here, I can select another load that this wagon will then be capable of carrying. So I'll select flour, click on the check mark, and then I'll fill the wagon with flour. So I'll just type in a ridiculously large number, click the check mark, then click the check mark again, and as you can see, this wagon is now filled with flour. Yes, the texture is a bit blurry, but it's not displaying the coal texture, which means that this wagon technically can hold this product. And that covers everything for this video, so thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful.